Dear media representatives and excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this press conference where we present the preliminary statement of the EU Election Observation Mission to the 2025 Kosovo parliamentary elections. We are joined here by Chief Observer Nathalie Loiseau, Head of European Parliament Delegation Marta Temido, and the mission's Deputy Chief Observer Thomas Bosrup. My name is Emilia Hinkkanen and I'm the press officer of the mission. You'll find the press release and the preliminary statements outside of this room after the press conference. Please note that the English language version is the official one. Without further ado, Chief Observer, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear journalists, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On Sunday, the people of Kosovo went to the polls to exercise their right to vote and to elect a new parliament for Kosovo. I would like to congratulate voters who took part in this historic election, the first after a full parliamentary term. This is also the first election under the new electoral law, which implements many previous EU recommendations. Altogether, Election day was peaceful and voters were able to cast their ballots in good conditions, thanks to the dedication of polling station staff. These are clear signals that the people of Kosovo are committed to democracy. I would like to thank the EU office in Kosovo for their support and the European Parliament delegation chaired by my dear colleague Marta Temido for a very good cooperation. We are now sharing with you the EU Election Observation Mission's preliminary statement. You will find it outside the room after the press conference. It is delivered before the completion of the entire electoral process. The council has still not started at municipal counting centers, as you know. So critical stages remain, including the tabulation of results and adjudication of petitions. We will publish a final report in around 2 months' time, including a full analysis and some recommendations. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the various stakeholders and interlocutors here in Kosovo, from the Central Election Commission to political party representatives, the media, and civil society and organizations, who have so collaboratively invested their time and shared their insights with us. Thank you. As we are gathered here, critical stages of the electoral process still remain. While our observers assessed the voting generally positively, difficulties with the implementation of procedures have become more apparent during the counting phase. We observed that the Central Election Commission experienced challenges with regards to hiring, training, and procurement. This may have caused significant delays, which are now undeniable. There must be full transparency of what's going wrong and why. The elections, including election day, have been peaceful, with no significant incidents, and the campaign was competitive. Still, polarization and deep divisions were evident in the harsh campaign rhetoric. There is a plurality of lists on the ballot paper, including among non-majority parties, which I would like to underline. But uneven resources and access to media lead to the absence of a level playing field. For instance, the number of Kosovo Serb parties can be seen as a positive sign, but genuine political plurality is still some way off. electoral bodies should remain independent of political influence. However, we witnessed instances of politicization of the Central Election Commission during the electoral process. We noted with concern the deadlock of the Independent Media Commission, which prevented it from taking any decision during the campaign. On the other hand, the Electoral Complaints and Appeals Panel, ECAP, was faced with a very large case load. It demonstrated its ability to take swift decisions. It imposed substantial fines on political entities. Several interlocutors considered that clearer criteria on the level of fines are needed. We observed the use of inflammatory campaign language and harsh verbal attacks on opponents at rallies and in TV debates. This was reflected also in the busy online and social media campaigning environment. We noted with concern negative language by the ruling party against the media and the judiciary. Boycotts of specific media outlets and debates also contributed to reduced opportunities for voters to make an informed electoral choice. Overall, broadcasters offered equal airtime to all political parties, but this was not taken up by all. The public service broadcaster could contribute to a more level playing field with regards to campaign visibility for non-majority communities. However, its resourcing is not commensurate with its role. The campaign in Kosovo's Serb-majority municipalities was more subdued compared to other municipalities. Many interlocutors reported of pressure by Srpska Lista members on voters, and there was overt and repeated interference by Serbia. During the campaign, we also witnessed interference by US Special Envoy Rick Grenell on social media, as he criticized Prime Minister Albin Kurti. It what can be described as a very undiplomatic tone. As regards women's participation, Kosovo legislation needs further harmonization. The current quota has been respected, but has not led to significant improvements in the number of female candidates. Furthermore, the campaign environment highlighted challenges for women's participation, including sexist verbal attacks in TV debates and negative posts on social media. The space for non-majority communities and languages seems to be shrinking. The different language communities inhabit separate political and information spheres, and these are seldom bridged. Although the law requires Serbian and other non-majority languages voting instructions to be available where these communities are present, this information was available for the most part only in Albanian language. Out of Kosovo voting saw improvements, with in-person voting at embassies introduced for the first time. We were not able, however, to observe out of Kosovo in-person voting, and the counting of the ballots hasn't started yet. We will continue our observation until the end of the whole electoral process, including any possible complaints. As we speak, 18 long-term observers and 36 short-term observers are still deployed across Kosovo. In addition, the core team of analysts will remain in Kosovo until the end of February. I want to remind you that the EU mission was invited by the President of Kosovo and is the only international full-fledged election observation mission at these elections. We deployed over 100 observers from all the 27 EU member states as well as Canada, Norway, and Switzerland. Our mission has been present in Kosovo for weeks and is staying, as I said, until the end of February. Finally, it is important to note that the mission is fully independent, including from EU member states and all EU institutions. To conclude, I was pleased to witness an electoral process that overall demonstrated resilience and commitment to democratic principles. Strong, independent institutions are key to a vibrant democratic future for Kosovo. Thank you for your attention, and now I would hand over the floor to Marta Temido.
Thank you so much, Madame Loiseau. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good afternoon, everyone here in the room and following us online. I am addressing you on behalf of the European Parliament Election Observation Delegation. We are delighted to be in Pristina at the invitation of the Kosovo authorities to observe these regular parliamentary elections, the first regular national elections in Kosovo, which is a clear sign of growing political stability. The contest that we have witnessed is another significant step in Kosovo's process of consolidating and strengthening its democracy. I want to praise today the voters of Kosovo, belonging to all communities, for having exercised orderly and peacefully their democratic right to choose their representatives. Our delegation from the European Parliament is comprised of 6 members from 4 political groups and 6 different European Union countries. Our delegation represents, therefore, a wide spectrum of the political sensibilities in the European Parliament, which is the only transnational parliament in the world, directly elected by almost 500 million European citizens. We observed these elections as part of the European Union Election Observation Mission, and we fully endorsed the statement of the preliminary findings and conclusions presented by our colleague, the European Union Chief Observer, Ms. Nathalie Loiseau. I would like to thank her and her team for their excellent cooperation with us. Let me also thank my colleagues, members of the European Parliament, our staff, and the European Union Office in Kosovo for their continuous support to our delegation. These elections, held under a new electoral law, have been generally competitive, without major incidents, with a vibrant campaign showing that Kosovo is a true democracy with political parties proposing alternative policies. However, the narrow political space for non-majority communities is a concern that has been raised by observers' missions before, and I would like to raise it again today. We understand that Serbian authorities have been heavily interfering by supporting one of the 6 Kosovo Serb political parties. Some of our interlocutors have also reported pressure on Kosovo Serb voters. The lack of genuine political pluralism within Kosovo's Serb community is not healthy for democracy and cannot be ignored. All Kosovo voters deserve the highest democratic standards. Observing these elections has helped us to assess how Kosovo's democracy is developing. I would like to take this opportunity to reiterate and support the comments of the Chief Observer about the state of play of the recommendations of the past European Union election observation missions. It is very positive that the successful adoption of the law on general elections in 2023 introduced some novelties designed to increase stakeholders' trust and enhance transparency of the electoral process. Now, several EU EOM recommendations are implemented and the legal framework is further in line with international standards and good practice. The implementation of the new electoral framework demonstrated that some aspects of the law require clarification to avoid potential for uncertainty. IT solutions, new methodology of counting and diaspora voting have been challenging. The failure to guarantee the timely publication of election results is regrettable. The training of the polling stations officers was late. Despite that, I saw myself that during the election day, the CAC staff managed well problems at the polling stations. The disagreement of the CAC members to prevent the certification of Srpska lista candidates casts a shadow over the otherwise generally inclusive certification process of contestants. Nevertheless, the Srpska lista candidates were certified on time. There is an aspect of the campaign that we are particularly concerned about: the use of negative and inflammatory language and harsh verbal attacks on opponents, which has, unfortunately, become common in the world. This also contributed to campaign messages which denigrated women and aimed to reinforce the traditionalist societal concepts of gender roles. Minority groups, including LGBTQAI+ community, were sometimes object of hatred in campaign. We welcome the reaction from the Election Complaints and Appeals Panel, which issued fines against those behaviors. Concerning the media, we regret the boycott of the major private media outlets by the ruling party. Turning more generally to the position of women in the whole electoral process, we were pleased that the 30% quota on the candidates' list was met by all parties, and some managed even to increase it. However, compared to last elections, it represents only a negligible increase. We hope to see women's access and participation improve in Kosovo, so to reach gender equality. Coming to election day, our observation teams were deployed in the areas of Pristina, the region of Prizren, and the north of Kosovo. We praise the efforts and commitment of many dedicated women and men who ensured in polling stations a smooth and orderly running of the procedures across the whole country. We welcome the high presence of observers from the political parties, which enhanced the confidence of stakeholders in the electoral process. Indeed, one of our teams also commended the representation of members of non-majority groups, including the Ashkali, among the staff of some polling stations that they observed. On less positive notes, we were concerned about restricted access to many polling stations for people with disabilities, missing materials for visually impaired people, and about the number of women candidates, as there has been hardly any improvement on this since previous elections. In conclusion, we look forward to a government taking office in Pristina in the near future, a government which would be able to strengthen the rule of law and carry out the fundamental reforms that are needed, including those related to the EU accession, and implement the new recommendations on electoral reform that the EU Election Observation Mission will be making. This will send a very positive signal to the EU and across the world. We await for the establishment of a new parliament in Kosovo, a parliament that should carry out effective oversight of the executive, ensure transparency and high-quality lawmaking. It should also build a consensus on EU accession-related reforms. Let me assure you that the European Parliament will closely follow the post-election day developments in Kosovo, including the handling of all complaints. With our presence today, we confirm our commitment to the democratic aspirations of the people of Kosovo, and you can be sure that you have many friends in the European Parliament supporting you on your path towards European integration. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Loiseau, and thank you, Ms. Temido. Now we can take questions from the floor, if there are any. Any questions from the floor? If it seems that that's not the case and all is clear, then we will proceed to one-to-one interviews. And thank you very much for your presence today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.